The Galactic Arena was bigger than any battlefield Ryland Cross had seen before, and he had seen many. The air inside smelled of oil, blood, and heat, and the walls were covered in banners from every major alien species across the galaxy. Giant warbeasts stood shoulder to shoulder beside insectoid killers, scaled duelists, and armored brutes with eyes that glowed red. They had come from war worlds, death moons, and combat colonies, all of them strong, all of them brutal. And every single one of them was laughing, because Ryland was human, and humans, in this place, were considered the weakest. He stood alone in the middle of the entry chamber, wearing the simplest training gear, no armor, no blades, no tech implants, no shield systems. The arena guards had shoved him to the back of the line when he arrived, called him meat, and handed him a dull chest plate that barely fit. "Try not to die in the first hit," human one snickered. Better yet, another said, "Make it funny." Ryland didn't answer, didn't even blink. He just adjusted the broken strap on his gear and kept watching the digital board where fighter names were being loaded. Rows of aliens looked at him, some curious, some amused. One tall brute with iron skin leaned over and said, "Is Earth still? Using sticks and rocks? Or did you finally invent swords?" The joke got a round of laughter, and even some of the arena staff smirked. But Ryland stood still, calm, quiet. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't defend himself. He didn't need to. He wasn't here for talk. He was here to fight. And then the announcement echoed through the entire chamber. First match, Section A Open Combat. Ryland Cross of Earth vs. Gorvax, the Ripper of Grunder Prime. Room fell quiet for a second, then laughter exploded. Gorvax was a four-armed monster known for pulling his enemies apart before the first bell even finished ringing. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin like tank armor and a blood record of 23 wins, 0 losses, and 11 dismemberments. One trainee whispered, "The human's gonna die in the first punch." Another added, "Why even bother starting the match? But Ryland didn't flinch. He looked up at the name, nodded once, and walked toward the arming tunnel as he passed. Even the guards backed away, not in respect, but in case the blood hit them too early. Inside the preparation zone, the arena AI scanned his vitals and activated the gate. A blue light shined down, and the door ahead opened to a roar of 20,000 alien voices. The crowd had come to see violence. They had come to see blood, and they were sure that human blood would be the first spilled. Gorvax entered from the opposite tunnel, roaring, chest plates gleaming, each of his forearms flexing. He smashed his fists together and howled into the air. Ryland stepped out quietly. Eyes low, face calm. He didn't wave, he didn't blink. He just kept walking until he stood in the center of the ring, the arena. Master's voice boomed over the speakers. "Begin." Gorvax charged without hesitation. His first swing came from high one arm, then another from low, then the third and fourth came, together in a crushing grab meant to smash ribs and lift the human straight into the air. But none of his hands touched Ryland, because Ryland was already gone. He had moved not fast, not flashy, just enough. He had slipped under the first arm, rotated his torso just outside the range of the second, then twisted between the third and fourth arms in a single step. Placing himself directly behind the larger alien, Gorvax grunted. Confused, Ryland didn't wait. He struck. His elbow crashed into the soft spot behind Gorvax's shoulder, the joint most species left unarmored. Before Gorvax could react, Ryland had already moved again, kicked the back of his opponent's knee, and stepped on the alien's foot in one fluid motion, locking him off dash balance. Then came the final strike. Ryland jumped, twisted his body midair, and slammed his heel into the side of Gorvax's skull. The sound echoed. Gorvax collapsed, face down. Silence followed. Not one cheer, not one shout, only the sound of the arena AI saying, "Combat complete. Winner, Ryland Cross of Earth." The guards at the gate didn't open the exit right away. They just stared. One whispered, "Did he just?" Another replied, "No way. That didn't just happen." But it had. Ryland walked out of the ring, still quiet, still expressionless. Now 20,000 voices sat in frozen silence. The human hadn't just survived, he had finished it in under 30 seconds, and he hadn't even drawn blood. The next morning, long before the arena lights came on, Ryland Cross was already awake. He wasn't meditating, wasn't stretching. He was sitting alone in the edge cell of the trainee quarters, quietly fixing the loose strap on his cheap chest plate. It had been dented from the last fight, but not by the enemy. The dent had come from when he dropped it after the match. In the halls outside, other warriors were talking loud, nervous, angry. They cheated. One of the insectoids hissed. "That human, he's hiding something," another said. "No human moves like that. He has tech implanted, a scaled." Beast snarled, but no one had proof. No one had seen a cheat. No one could explain how Ryland had dropped Gorvax the Ripper in under a minute without weapons, without tricks, and without blood. So they did what cowards always do. They demanded he be tested again, the arena master agreed with a smile. That day, Ryland's name appeared 3 times on the combat schedule. No other trainee was called more than once. He was assigned to 3 fights, spaced only 2 hours apart. A test meant to exhaust him. Setup meant to break him down. Match 1, against a twin-blade warrior from Karen Zix. Fast. Brutal. Sharp match 2, a 2-headed brute who could punch through walls and took down 3 trainees the day before. Match 3, a blind telepath who never lost because she could feel every move before it happened. The guards smirked when they handed Ryland the schedule. "Hope you said goodbye to your bones," one muttered. Ryland didn't even look at the card. He just nodded and walked to the armory. They didn't give him new gear. No repair. No upgrades. Just his old dented chest plate and a blunt training staff. Barely balanced and cracked at one end, but he didn't complain because he wasn't here to be treated fair. He was here to remind them what humans do when cornered. First match, the twin-blade warrior circled fast. Moving in tight arcs, slicing air like a dancer made of knives. The crowd loved him. He shouted taunts, spun his blades, and smiled. Ryland didn't move until the warrior got too close. Then Ryland sidestepped, smashed the cracked end of his staff into the opponent's knee, pivoted behind him, and slammed the other end into the warrior's spine. It took 11 seconds. Ryland didn't even use the sharp side. The crowd didn't know whether to clap or stay silent. Second match, the 2-headed brute laughed as he entered. "This one won't dodge. Will crack." The brute charged. Ryland waited, let him get close, then dropped to the ground. Kicked both ankles out from under the massive beast, rolled over his back, and elbowed the top of the left head. The second head growled and turned. Too late, Ryland had already slipped to the side, grabbed the brute's thick neck, and drove him into the ground using the creature's own.
Ow.
Momentum, both heads slammed into the floor. 14 seconds. A few aliens in the audience stood up in shock. Third match, the telepath. Everyone said this would be it. No one beats a reader. A staff member whispered, "She knows your moves before you make them." The fight began. The telepath stood still, hands behind her back, calm, confident. Ryland paced slowly, breathing steady. She smiled. "You're already thinking about your first step." Ryland didn't reply. He took a deep breath, then another. Then suddenly he stopped thinking. His mind went blank. He didn't plan, he didn't visualize. He just moved. Every strike came from pure reflex. Left, duck, twist, jab, elbow. The telepath stumbled. She couldn't read him anymore because he wasn't fighting with thought. He was fighting from instinct, the kind forged on Earth battlefields where thinking meant dying, and survival meant reaction. The final strike knocked her out clean. 21 seconds. When Ryland left the ring, the arena didn't cheer. They just stared. He had fought 3 elite warriors in less than 1 day. He had used no real weapons. And he had won every match. without a single wasted movement. Even the guards stopped mocking him now. Even the arena. Master paused before assigning the next schedule. In the mess hall that night, Ryland sat alone. No one sat beside him, but no one pushed his tray either. They didn't know what to make of him. He was still wearing basic gear, still using broken, still silent, but something in the air had changed. They didn't laugh at him anymore. They watched him now. They studied him, because some part of them had finally realized. He wasn't fighting to survive. He was fighting to prove something. And they were all beginning to wonder. The galactic banner swayed high above the arena, casting long shadows over the blood-stained floor. Lights flashed. Drones hovered. Seats were packed from wall to wall. This wasn't a regular match. This was the mid-tier championship, broadcast. Lived to 7 sectors. Fighters from 30 different species had competed for this position. But somehow, the only human had made it, and the crowd didn't like that. Alien commentators spoke loudly across channels. He's good, yes, but this time, he dies. No human has ever fought on a live-ranked match and walked out without bleeding. See Earth's limits today. His opponent's name thundered across the arena like a drumbeat, from the furnace cities of Vorkai 9. Undefeated champion, Threlrak the Shatterer. The crowd roared. Threlrak stood almost 9 feet tall. Heavy armor plated his chest. Each fist wore bone-spiked gauntlets soaked in dried blood. His record was terrifying. 45 wins, 0 losses, 38 knockouts. His method: hit hard, hit first, and fast. He walked into the ring like a god of violence, arms raised, mouth open in a war cry, and then the announcer's voice shifted tone. Facing him, ranked lowest in the league, the only human, Ryland Cross of Earth. The cheers faded. Boos took their place, hissing, growls. But Ryland didn't flinch. He stepped into the arena without armor, without flash, without sound. Just his worn boots, simple vests, and calm eyes. No emotion. No expression. Threll, Elrak pointed at him and laughed. Do you even bleed, little Earth thing? Ryland said nothing. The arena master raised his hand. Begin. Threlrak charged immediately. His right fist swung like a meteor. His left followed like a hammer. His legs stomped forward with enough weight to crack the sand beneath his feet. The entire arena brightened, and Ryland moved barely. A tilt of the shoulder, a slight duck, a spin on one heel. The first punch missed by an inch. The second sliced past his ribs, but touched nothing. The stomp missed entirely, in the space of 4 seconds. 3 death blows had failed, and Ryland hadn't even raised a hand yet. Threlrak grunted. Confused, angry. He swung again harder this time. This time Ryland caught his wrist. Not blocked caught, one hand, grip firm. Body unmoving, then he twisted it not wildly, not violently, but with purpose. The crack echoed across the entire stadium. The crowd gasped. Terex. Right wrist dangled unnaturally. Before he could scream, Ryland struck. A knee to the ribs. Palm to the chin. A twist at the base of the neck. Then a sweep. Threlrak crashed to the ground face first. The impact sent sand flying into the air. He tried to rise, howling in pain. Ryland stepped on the back of his leg and pinned him down. Then, bent low, just enough for the cameras to capture his words. You talk too much, he said softly. The arena master hesitated. He looked at the monitors. Threll wasn't unconscious, but he wasn't moving. The giant warrior. The Shatterer was frozen. Eyes wide, breathing hard, refusing to fight again. The announcer's voice cracked. Combat complete. Ryland Cross. The arena went dead silent. No one clapped. No one booed. No one even breathed, because they hadn't just watched the human win. They had watched him end a champion without drawing blood, and it wasn't luck, it was strategy. It was control. In the control room, the arena tech officers played the match again, slowed it down. Frame by frame, They couldn't believe what they saw. His angle changed 1 degree right before the punch. He used the armor's weight against him. It wasn't reaction, that was prediction. One of the security officers looked at the replay and muttered, "He had that whole fight solved before it began." Up in the private box, Commander Threx sat watching quietly. Beside him, an alien general whispered, "Is he enhanced?" Threx shook his head slowly. "No. Then what is he?" Threx took a breath. "He's human, with nothing left to prove. It makes him unstoppable." Later that night, back in the trainee barracks, no one looked at Rylan. They couldn't. Not after what he had done. Threlrak had to be carried out of the ring. He hadn't been. He's knocked out. He had been mentally broken. Rylan lay in his bunk eyes, closed hands behind his head. He didn't smile. He didn't feel proud. He was just thinking, because this match hadn't been for glory. It had been a message. And now, everyone watching across 7 sectors had received it. He was no longer the weak one. He was the shadow standing over their champions, and he hadn't even started yet. The next morning, the galactic arena was quieter than usual.
Oh.
No roars, no cheers. Just murmurs. They weren't laughing at the human anymore. Now, they were whispering in the dark corners of the barracks, in the mess halls. In the halls outside the med bay, where Threlrak still lay unconscious, no one said, "Rylan Cross's name out loud." They just called him the Earthborn, or that one, or sometimes nothing at all, because they weren't sure what he really was anymore. The warriors who used to boast, who used to slam fists and roar before every match, were now training in silence, glancing at doors before speaking. Some had even started checking the fight schedules in advance, just to make sure they wouldn't be in Rylan's next match. But he was there every day, alone, quiet, not showing off, not making noise, just watching, just learning. He ate in silence, slept in silence, walked in silence, and that silence was starting to make people nervous. Some called it strategy. Others called it something darker. One warrior said, "He doesn't just fight. He studies pain like it's math." Another whispered, "He doesn't kill. He makes you wish he would." Even the guards had stopped mocking him. One evening, Rylan stepped into the training yard for basic drills. He moved slowly, precisely, striking a wooden dummy with a series of clean, controlled hits each, one placed exactly where it needed to go. To disable a real enemy, 2 younger warriors watched from a distance. "Look how soft his strikes look," one said. The other replied, "Yeah. Then why do champions keep falling after 3 of them?" From above, a set of arena officials were watching too. Commander Threx stood with his arms folded. Beside him was a shadowy figure, one of the arena masters from the capital sectors. Had come early to watch the human for themselves, Threx said quietly. "He doesn't waste movement. His footwork is Earth military." The other replied, "No Earth military moves like that anymore. That's what worries me," Threx answered. That same day, the training schedule was changed. Without warning, a new match was posted on the arena wall. Match type: multi-combat challenge. Opponent count: 2. Trainee: Rylan Cross. The arena had decided to test him differently this time. They didn't want a clean match. They wanted a war. 2 fighters were sent in against him, both handpicked by the arena council. One was a scaled berserker from Volnax who used spinning axes and screamed until his voice cracked. The other was a blood-born twin-boned hunter with 4 legs and a tail that snapped like a whip. Both had something in common. They hated humans, and both were promised double ranking if they broke Earth's mistake. The crowd showed up in numbers. Finally, they believed they'd see Rylan crushed. The gate opened. The crowd roared. The opponents came out swinging. Rylan stood still. The first axe missed. Hit his head by 2 inches. The second strike grazed his shoulder. The tail cracked through the air and hit the dirt where his foot had just been. He moved like water. It's not fast, not flashy, but perfect. His body flowed between strikes, dodging here, stepping there, ducking just before the tail spun again. Then he struck, 1 palm to the side of the berserker's neck, 1 knee and 2. The hunter's lower leg joint, then a roll, a slide, and a twist. He grabbed the tail mid-whip and yanked. The hunter screamed. The crowd fell silent. Ryland stepped around, placed his foot on the berserker's knee from behind, and shoved. The bones snapped. The first one fell. The second tried to run. Ryland let him, but only for 10 seconds. Then he walked forward calm, closing the distance slowly until the hunter tripped over his own fear. Ryland stood over him, didn't speak, didn't strike, just stared. The horn blew to match over, but no one clapped, because what they had just seen wasn't a fight. It was a dismantling. A message. A warning. Later that night, a senior champion whispered to Threx. He didn't kill them. Why? Threx replied, because if he had, they'd call it strength. Then what is he trying to show us? Threx's face hardened. He's showing us restraint. Back in the barracks, Ryland sat on his bunk, rapping his knuckles slowly. He had heard the whispers, he had seen the fear, but he didn't feel proud because he wasn't finished, they thought. He wanted respect. They thought he wanted rank. They were wrong. He wanted one thing only, the champion. And every quiet step he took was just one more closer to that final fight. The crowd didn't know it yet, but their strongest warrior would soon fall. And when he did, he wouldn't fall with honor. He would beg. The arena lights burned brighter than ever before. The ground had been cleaned, the banners raised higher. Now, the Galactic Council had approved the match for a system-wide broadcast. Today's event wasn't just another fight. It was a spectacle because today, Ryland Cross was fighting Kravital the Bonebreaker. The crowd loved Kravital. They chanted his name before he even entered the ring. He was a massive, horned alien from the world of Rudin, known for tearing arms off opponents and laughing. While doing it, in 29 matches, he had broken over 70 bones. He was the arena's favorite weapon loud, violent and cruel. And when he faced the human, he promised the crowd a show. I won't just beat him, Kravital had said in a pre-match broadcast. I'll make him scream. The crowd cheered wildly. Commentators called it a mercy match won, to finally stop the rise of the quiet human. But in the arena tunnels, Ryland wasn't listening. He stood in the shadow of the gate, adjusting the same battered gear he'd worn. For every fight, the guards said nothing to him now. They didn't joke. They didn't smirk. They just opened the gate, because even they had started to wonder, what kind of warrior keeps winning? Without anger, the gate opened. The roar of thousands hit him like a wave. Flags flew, horns blew. The crowd thundered with laughter and excitement as Kravital marched out. Beating his chest with fists the size of boulders, Ryland stepped out quietly. No smile, no emotion, just calm footsteps across the sand. The arena master raised his hand. Begin. Kravital didn't wait. He charged like a beast. The crowd screamed with joy. His first fist flew straight for Ryland's head, but Ryland didn't dodge. Backward he stepped forward inside the swing, and the punch missed. The crowd blinked. Kravital spun and threw another punch. Ryland ducked, slipped under, tapped Kravital's leg behind the knee. The giant stumbled, but didn't fall. Not yet. Kravital roared, grabbed the human's chest plate, lifted him high into the air, and slammed him into the ground. The arena shook. Dust flew. The audience cheered. Finally, someone shouted. He broke him. But when the dust cleared, Ryland was already on his feet, not limping, not bleeding, just staring. Kravital's face twitched. He charged again. Ryland waited, then moved not wildly. Not fast, but with terrifying precision. One step, one elbow, one shift of weight. His knee struck Kravital's side just as the alien turned. A weak spot, the giant gasped. Ryland didn't stop. He struck the elbow joint, the ankle, the shoulder blade. Each hit was placed like it was calculated, timed perfectly. Between breaths, between blinks, Kravital dropped to one knee. The crowd was quiet now. Ryland circled him. He didn't smile, didn't boast, just raised his hand, then lowered it gently. A signal, stay down. But Kravtal didn't. He roared and tried to rise. That's when Ryland struck the final time. He stepped behind the giant, locked his arms around his neck, not to choke but to press just enough pressure where the nerves collapsed. Kravtal dropped like a mountain, face first into the sand, unmoving. Silence for the first time in months. The crowd didn't cheer, they didn't laugh, they didn't chant. They just stared, and somewhere in that stillness, something changed. A single voice shouted from the back. Earth, Earth. Another followed, then another soon. The chant spread. Earth, Earth, Earth. It wasn't loud. Not yet, but it was real. And Kravtal, the crowd's champion, lay broken. Behind the one they used to mock, Ryland turned, walked slowly toward the gate. No smile, no victory pose, just silence. Because to him, this wasn't the final goal. This was only the beginning. Up in the control deck, Commander Threx watched the screen with his arms folded tightly. A junior officer leaned forward. Sir, he didn't kill him. Why? Threx didn't look away. He doesn't want to win by fear. He wants to win by dominance, another officer said. Then what happens when he reaches the champion? Threx's voice was calm and low. Then the galaxy sees what mercy really means. Later that night, Kravtal woke up in the medical chamber, surrounded by healers and silence. He looked around, confused. Where's the human? He whispered. One of the medics replied. Gone. He left right after the match. Kravtal's voice was shaking. He didn't kill me, no, the medic said. He let you live. Kravtal closed his eyes. Why? The medic didn't answer because even she didn't understand, but Ryland did. He was sending a message, not to Krav. Tal, not to the crowd, to the champion. And that message was simple. You're next. The arena floor was still stained with Krav. Tal's blood when the announcement came. A special meeting had been called inside the Council Chamber of Champions. High above the combat decks where warriors had no say, and decisions were made far from the noise of the crowd. The arena leaders, sponsors, and strategists sat around a black stone table, screens floating around them, all showing one name. Ryland Cross. He's ruining the system, growled the Varnax warlord. Ratings have doubled, said another. But the people are no longer cheering for their own. He has no sponsors, no clan, no homeworld backing. Yet he walks through every fight like he's writing a book no one else can read, someone else muttered. Commander Threx watched silently. Then he said it plainly. We give him the champion's fight and he wins. The balance of fear shifts. That was the real reason. Ryland didn't just win. He made people believe in something different. And belief was dangerous. So the council did what powerful people always do when afraid. They rigged the next fight. The next morning, the new match was posted, unrestricted. Combat trial, the gauntlet. Combatant, Ryland Cross. Opponents, 10. Time limit, none. Outcome required, elimination or surrender. It was a death match in all but name. 10 elite warriors, fully armed. No allies, no exits. The crowd filled the stadium. Word had spread. This wasn't a test. It was a burial, and still. Ryland walked into the arena with the same quiet calm. He wore no special armor. No helmet, no shield, just reinforced gloves, and his eyes locked straight ahead. The 10 fighters entered from different gates, one with poison claws, another with an electric chain. 3 from species that had never lost a fight in group combat. They didn't speak, they didn't joke, they had been promised something more than victory. They had been promised. His end, the arena master, didn't even raise a hand. He just dropped. The fight began. 5 charged at once. Ryland, he didn't move back. He moved forward. The crowd gasped. He ducked the first strike, caught the electric chain midair, and wrapped it around the wielder's throat, then pulled hard. The fighter crashed to the floor, unconscious before hitting the ground. Ryland yanked the chain free, spun it like a whip, and lashed it across. The eyes of the clawed beast behind him, 2 down, the other 8, surrounded him. Rylan dropped the chain. He was baiting them, and they took it. A blade sliced across his arm, another tore through his vest. Blood hit the sand for the first time. Rylan bled. The crowd leaned forward, but he didn't fall. He smiled, not wide, just enough. Then everything changed. He slammed his elbow into the joint of the bladed warrior. Bone snapped. He grabbed the dropped sword just for a moment, flipped it in his hand, and drove it backward into the leg of the reptile fighter behind him. He spun, stepped, twisted. 3 more went down. Now only 4 remained, and they backed up because now they saw it. Rylan wasn't fighting to survive. He was solving them. One charged Rylan, caught him mid-run with a strike to the throat that dropped him instantly. The final 3 looked at each other. They rushed together. Rylan ran into them. He tackled one, used his falling weight to launch himself upward, and drove both knees into another's chest. He hit the ground, rolled, grabbed the last one by the jaw, spoke just 2 words, "Try harder." Then dropped him 10 in, 10 out. Only one still standing. The arena was so silent. The wind across the stone seats could be heard. Up in the council chamber, alarms were flashing. One of the sponsors shouted, he wasn't supposed to make it. Another asked, "What now?" Threx didn't answer. He was watching Rylan not as an opponent, but as a force back in the arena. Rylan wiped the blood from his face. He looked directly at the council box. High above the stadium, raised one hand, then pointed a single finger upward. Toward the champion's box. A direct challenge. And the people saw it. They stood. Thousands of voices shouted his name. Not Earthborn. Not human. Just one word. Rylan, Rylan, Rylan. The arena couldn't ignore him anymore. They had tried to erase him, but instead, they made him a symbol of something stronger than muscle, faster than rage, unshakable purpose. And now, only one fight remained. The champion. The day had finally come. The crowd was larger than ever before. Every seat was taken. Every screen across the galaxy was tuned in. From mining ships to noble courts, from war planets to peace stations, everyone was watching. Because today, the human warrior named Rylan Cross was going to face the undefeated legend. Champion Exaran. His name alone made people lower their voices. No one had ever knocked him down, no one had even touched his face. Exaran had ruled the arena for 13 years. His armor was custom forged from the core of a dying star. His body was more machine than flesh. His eyes glowed gold. His voice could shake a wall. And today he would face a human with no armor, no species ranking, no sponsors. Just a name. The crowd now shouted without hesitation. Rylan, Rylan, Rylan. Up in the royal balcony, Commander Threx stood silently, arms folded, watching the gate below. A diplomat beside him whispered, "If he wins, everything changes." Threx nodded once. That's why he must. Down below in the tunnel beneath the arena, Rylan adjusted his gloves. He was tired, not just in body but in soul. Fight after fight. Trap after trap. He had been laughed at, pushed, broken open, and yet here he was. He looked in the cracked mirror across the tunnel wall. Not to admire, but to remember. He whispered softly. For Earth, for those who weren't given a chance. The gate opened. The sunlight hit his face, and the cheers exploded. He stepped into the arena, walking through the storm of noise like it didn't touch him. Calm, focused, deadly, across the arena. Another gate opened with a blast of steam. Exaran stepped through. He was massive. Twice Rylan's size. His footsteps left dents in the stone. His armor gleamed like polished death. He raised his arm and the crowd fell silent. One motion, complete control. He spoke through the comm system so the whole galaxy could hear. I have faced monsters, titans, and demons. But today, I destroy. A myth. This human ends here. The arena master raised his hand. The drums stopped. The crowd went still. Final combat champions duel begin. Exaron moved first like thunder. He struck with a spear blade, long and sharp, aiming to end the fight in one swing. Rylan ducked. The blade missed by inches. Exaron spun, kicking with a boot powered by servos. Rylan blocked it with both arms. Body flew back, skidding across the sand. The crowd gasped. He got up slowly, shoulders shaking, but his face was steady, no fear, just understanding. He had seen Exaron's rhythm. 1 second too. It's fast, too strong, too confident. Rylan moved in again. Exaron laughed and fired a plasma pulse from his shoulder cannon. Rylan dropped flat to the sand, let the shot sail past, and rolled forward and struck. One punch to the hip joint. The armor cracked slightly. Just a hairline, but Exaron noticed. He growled, "You dare touch me." He struck again 3 times in a row. Each hit shook the ground. Each swing stronger than the last, but Rylan danced between them, not perfectly, but smartly. One grazed to the ribs. One cut on his forehead, but he never lost his breath, never lost his balance. He hit again, to the back of Exaron's knee, then to the collar, then to the elbow joint. The champion staggered for the first time in 13 years. Gasps rippled across the stands. Someone whispered, "He's fighting a god." Another replied, "No, he's unmaking one." 10 minutes in, Exaron was breathing hard. He struck slower now, more wild. Rylan had bled, but he was still standing, and now he was stepping forward, not away. Forward, Exoran tried to grab him by the throat. Rylan twisted, lammed his shoulder into the side panel of the champion's armor right, where the power supply vented heat. Steam burst out. Sparks followed. The champion stumbled. The crowd froze. Rylan whispered something that only Exaron could hear. "You're not a god. Just another bully in a suit." Then he hit him in the chest twice, fast and clean. The final strike landed under the chin, snapping Exaron's head back. The champion fell, on one knee, then both. The arena was dead quiet. Rylan didn't raise a fist, didn't roar, didn't smile. He just waited. And then Exoran, the undefeated, the untouchable, the legend, lowered his head and tapped the ground with his hand. "Surrender!" The arena master's voice cracked. "Winner Rylan Cross, of Earth." The crowd sat still, then rose as one. The chant began again, but louder than ever. "Rylan, Rylan." He didn't wave. He didn't raise his arms. He just stood there because he knew. The fight wasn't about proving humans were strong. It was about proving that mercy, patience, and strategy were stronger than rage, armor, or legacy. Up in the command tower, Threx smiled for the first time. A general beside him whispered, "What do we do now?" Threx said softly, "We adapt, or we get left behind." The day after the champion's fall, the galaxy wasn't the same. On planets where humans had once been ignored, their flag now flew high. On stations where aliens used to mock Earth's weakness, people now asked questions, quietly, carefully about who trained Rylan Cross, and in the galactic arena, the floor where thousands had bled was scrubbed clean for the first time in decades, because history had changed, but Rylan Cross had not. He stood in the empty arena alone that morning, before the sun reached the dome windows. His gloves were tucked under one arm, and a long bruise ran down his jaw. He wasn't wearing his gear. He wasn't training. He was just standing there, silent, like always. Behind him, the gates opened, and Commander Threx entered slowly, arms behind his back, not as a rival, not as an officer, but as a witness. "You could have killed him," Threx said, his voice calm. Exoran, on the floor, he couldn't move. Rylan didn't turn. "That's not why I came here." Threx walked forward until they stood side by side. "Then why?" Rylan looked ahead at the stands, the towers, the silent cameras still floating. "I didn't come to beat your best," he said. "To remind them all that even if you stand alone, even if they laugh, Even if they try to bury you, if you're patient, if you're disciplined, if you know your reason, you can make the galaxy watch you rise. Threx didn't reply right away. He simply nodded once. For the first time, Threx saw the full picture. Rylan hadn't been climbing a ladder to glory. He had been tearing down the wall that kept humans low. With silence, with control. With purpose, the Arena Council held a vote that afternoon. The result was immediate and clear. Earth's ban from elite galactic combat divisions was lifted. Human warriors were cleared for officer command positions. Rylan Cross was offered a seat on the arena board. He refused the last one. He didn't want to sit on high chairs or sign documents in gold ink. He only asked for one thing: let the next human fight without being laughed at. And with that, he left the arena. No celebration, no farewell speech, just like he had arrived, quiet, focused, and alone. But he wasn't forgotten. Weeks later, in the southern training sector, a new class of recruits entered the arena. Young, sharp, loud. A few of them looked at the human trainee in their row and laughed. "Hope you brought a shield," one joked. "You'll need it." The human didn't respond. He just looked up. Behind them on the wall was a new banner. Black, simple, bold letters. A single quote. They laughed at the human warrior until he made their champion beg for mercy. And beneath it, a name: Rylan Cross. Earth's, the ones who had laughed, went silent. The human trainee looked up at the banner and smiled, far across the stars. Rylan sat quietly on a ship bound for a neutral system. He didn't wear his arena badge. He didn't carry any weapons. But when people passed him in the corridor, they paused. They recognized his face. Not because of what he had done, but because of what he had refused to do. He had refused to fight for hate, refused to kill when he didn't. Need to, refused to speak when silence said. More, he hadn't fought to destroy. He fought to change the rules, and now those rules would never be the same again. On a final screen, high above the arena's front gate, the cameras showed a loop of his matches. The first one where they laughed, the one where he bled, and the last one where the champion fell. Below it, a message was etched in every galactic language: mercy is not weakness, discipline is not silence, and humanity is not broken.